Shalom, family. It's good to see you. I hope everybody is doing well. We're going to cover a story. I mean, many of you know these things are happening already, but we know how, if anything is implemented in law enforcement, it's always going to impact us the most. So, we're just going to talk about that on this live stream. Okay. All right. All right. So just give me a moment here. Just getting everything set up. All right. Okay. Get rid of that. And perfect. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you now. I'm ready. Shalom, everybody in the chat. Shalom to you. Okay. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Please give me a 1 if you can see the screen. Thank you. Thank you. All right. All right. Now, what you're looking at on the screen is a map, and the little dots represent very low level traffic stops that occur in the country. All right. And as you can see, just looking at this map, all of these locations have a pretty decent size Black population. All right. And we know just from low level traffic offenses, it is heavily concentrated on Black people. You know, we're literally financing these different municipalities from these particular type of stops. So it's like, okay, you have your light is not shining so that your license plate can be seen. Oh yeah, that poses a huge danger to the community. You know, that kind of stuff where they just nitpick reasons to pull Black men and women over, and in many of these cases they end up dead over stupid minor traffic infractions. Oh, you got a car freshener hanging from your rear view mirror. Nobody should be pulling you over in this country for that reason. Seriously, obstruction of windshield. That's what they try to call that. How the hell can that tiny air freshener obstruct you from seeing the entire big windshield? You know, all these petty crimes are geared towards pulling Black people over. Now, I'm going to be doing a story later in regards to the Philadelphia Police Department have banned police officers from pulling Black people over, really anybody over, for low level traffic violations. So they cannot even pull you over for those reasons anymore. Okay. They can't do that anymore. I believe that should be nationwide. It certainly will save a lot of lives, but we know this enemy is very crafty. So when you ban him in one area, he'll look for another petty area to get you in, because that's just the nature of the beast. And this is what they do. We all know this. So this came out in the New York Times. What is the real reason why we get pulled over? We know race plays a huge part in it because there's no denying it. All of these locations that you see the dots on are disproportionately pulling over Black men and women. Okay, so the demand for money behind many police traffic stops. Okay, so many of these municipalities, by pulling over a high number of Black men and women, are getting millions every single year just doing that one act. Millions. Okay. So busted tail lights, missing license plate, tinted windows across the US, ticket revenue funds towns. So we're funding all of these damn racist towns when they pull us over and it's for a minor traffic violation. So it goes a lot deeper than just being pulled over and given a ticket, especially in the case of Black people and police responsible for finding these violations. So they are going out every day in traffic and purposely finding the most petty thing possible. And especially if they can spot a Black person, this is exactly what they're doing. Howard Brown's contribution to the local treasury began as many, so others have been in Valley Brook. That's why Valley Brook is highlighted on this map, Oklahoma. A police officer saw that the light above his license plate was out. Again, nobody should be pulling you over for that reason. Even if your light is out, don't these cars have headlights? So you mean to tell me the headlights can't pick up what that license plate says? It's a bullshit reason to pull people over. Okay. You pulled me over for that? This is what Harold Brown is saying. Come on, man, Mr. Brown. A security guard headed home from work at 1:30 a.m. Expressing his annoyance was all it took. The officer yelled at Mr. Brown, ordered him out of a car. Why are you getting out of a car? Because the light over your license plate is not on, or it just blew out. The bulb just blew out. It's going to happen sooner or later, right? Why does somebody got to get out of the car over that? No, he didn't like the pushback from a Black man. That's all that was. So he yelled for him to get out of the car and threw him to the pavement over a damn light being out over a license plate. Okay. After a trip to jail that night in 2018, his hands cuffed and blood running down his face onto his uniform, Mr. Brown eventually arrived at the crux of the matter. Valley Brook, this is how much they charged him for this whole ordeal: $800 in fines. The only thing that was wrong with his car was a light over his license plate was not working. How the hell do you end up with $800 to pay over that? But see, this is what these cops do. See, when they are getting you out of the car over minor shit, they're actually racking up the fines against you. That's what they're really doing at that moment. Oh, get out of the car. Get out of the car. Remember, they did the same thing to Sandra Bland? There was no reason for Sandra Bland to be pulled over or end up in jail. But see, once you step onto that highway, getting out of your car, you're racking up the bills right there. They know what they're doing when they tell you to do that. Okay, so he ended up with $800 in fines and fees. It was an infraction of roughly $1 million that the town of 870 people collects each year from traffic stop. And in Valley Brook, most of the stops were Black men and women. Okay. So they were getting $1 million per year pulling over black people for minor shit. So that's what those stops are about. They don't care about you. They're trying to generate revenue on the backs of black men and women. Haven't they been using the backs of black men and women since the inception of this country? And it never stopped. They always try to find other little crafty ways to rob us out of our money. They're still stealing from us. A hidden scaffolding of financial incentives unpinned the police of motorists in the United States, encouraging some communities to essentially repurpose armed officers as revenue agents searching for infractions largely unrelated to public safety. Right. That is so true because how is a bulb over your license plate putting the public at risk? It's not. It's not. As a result, driving is one of the most common daily routines during which people have been shot, tased, beaten, and arrested over minor offenses. And we know who they're arresting and who they're beating and killing. Some of those encounters, like Sandra Bland, Walter Scott, Philando Castile, all of them were minor traffic violations. And in the case of Sandra Bland, I don't believe it was a violation at all. He just spotted a black woman driving and she was in that car by herself. By herself. And that was a big reason why he came at her the way that he did. So we know for all of those folks, they got pulled over for the most minor thing ever and now notorious and contributed to a national upheaval over race and policing. The New York Times has identified more than 400 others from the past 5 years in which officers killed unarmed civilians who had not been under the pursuit of violent crimes. That's right. Pulling you over for a violation that doesn't fall under a violent crime, but they committed violent acts on motorists for minor things. Fueling the culture of traffic stops is the federal government, which issues a $600 million a year in traffic safety grants that subsidize ticket writing. Now, didn't we all say there were quotas in these tickets? Okay. We always been saying that. Although federal officials say they do not impose quotas. Yes, they do. They impose quotas, ladies and gentlemen, and always have. And we even used to say that back when I first got my license. We would be like, oh, it's quota time, because you would see an exceptionally large amount of cops tucked away on the side of the road or in parking lots by the highway. You would see that number go up as we got closer to the end of the month. So they can miss me with this BS about they don't have quotas. You're lying. All right, at least 20 states have elevated police performance on a number of traffic stops per hour, which critics say contributes to over policing. Isn't that what we always said? We are over policed. And erosion of public trust, particularly among members of certain racial groups. They mean us, please. Many municipalities across the country rely heavily on ticket revenue and court fees to pay for government services, and some maintain outsized police departments to help generate the money, according to the review of hundreds of municipal audit reports, town budgets, court files, and state highway records. So, yeah, so they're financing these towns off of the backs of Black people. This is, for the most part, not a big city phenomena, while Chicago stands out as a large city with a history of collecting millions from motorists. Yeah, but they do poor on resolving murders, but they do great on pulling people over for tickets. Go figure. The towns that depend the most on such revenue have fewer than 30,000 people. Over 730 municipalities rely on fines and fees for at least 10% of their revenue, enough to pay for the entire police force. Now, think about that, ladies and gentlemen. They get enough money pulling primarily black motorists over to literally pay the salaries of all of their police officers. But when we say we're being over policed, they're trying to laugh it off and act like that ain't happening. See, this is why your country is on a decline. It's all of the wicked acts that you have done over the centuries, and it will continue to get worse for you. Okay. So you see the map below where you see the green, and let's be real, these are states that have, a pretty sizable black population, Texas, Florida, Mississippi, Louisiana, and even up here in the northern states. Okay. These have a higher concentration of where black people live. You don't have a high amount of black people in Nevada and Idaho and Montana. We're not in those kind of areas. We're in these areas where you see the green dot. This is where we are heaviest in population in this nation. A majority are in the South and Midwest, though clusters also appear outside New York City and Washington. They include Henderson, Louisiana, a town of 2,000 people perched along Interstate 10, and that collected 1.7 million in fines in 2019, 89% of its general revenue. Pulling over black people. 89% of their revenue is gained from pulling over black motorists primarily. And where officers were accused of illegally receiving cash rewards for writing tickets. They do that all over. That's why the cops are out here big towards the end of the month, because they are getting paid for pulling over as many motorists as possible. Oliver, Georgia, with about 380 residents, get more than half its budget from fines. But an investigation last year found that the local police had improperly written more than $40,000 in tickets outside their jurisdiction. So they were outside of their towns writing tickets for black people. They weren't even in their town. They were driving out of their town to give that ticket. This place, boy, y'all got hell to pay. And you will pay that hell. You will pay it. Okay. All right. So in Bracknell, Ohio, a town government is so dependent on traffic enforcement that the police chief castigated his officers as badge wearing slugs. That's what he calls his officers, badge wearing slugs. In an email, when a downturn in ticket writing jeopardized raises. So they were threatening not to give these officers their raises if they didn't get the ticket writing up. Mm-mm-mm. Ticket revenue helped finance the sheriff's equipment in Amherst County, Virginia. A peace officer, and so they got a benefit fund and everything in Doralville, Georgia, police training in Connecticut, Oklahoma, and South Carolina. So they use ticket writing to finance all of these things. Mm-mm-mm. The message goes out that if you want more training, then go ahead and write more tickets So write more tickets if you want more training because you're funding whatever dirty training they're getting and how to handle us because really that's all it is. So the former police chief of Seattle and three other cities. So if you want more training within the police department, write more tickets, pull more of these Negroes over and give them tickets. And that's the way we're going to finance your training. Mm, mm, mm. Mm, mm, mm. So, yeah, and yeah, exactly. Then they want to know why people are saying defund the police. Then they want to know why people want a more accountability on these police officers. This is what they want. So, Philadelphia is really doing something unprecedented by banning their cops for pulling over for minor things now. Let's see what the rest of the country will. Will they set a trend or will the rest of the country ignore what Philadelphia is doing and they'll just continue on over policing and pulling over primarily black motorists, as if we are the worst ones on the road. How many times have you been on the road and you seen people driving crazy and they're non-black people? I have. I have seen it multiple times. In fact, in the beginning of the pandemic, we were out and a white man in a pickup truck ran right into a pole. He went through the traffic light, jumped the curb, and ran into a pole head on with his truck. Okay. Okay. So, no, we are definitely not the worst drivers on the road, but the amount of tickets that we get because of over policing, you would think we were. You would think we were the worst ones on the entire road. And you remember, it has a snowball effect, y'all. Think about this. When you get so many tickets on your record, that is going to cause you to pay more in car insurance. All right. Yes, tickets, so many tickets. Yeah, you're going to end up with higher insurance. So it's going to have a domino effect on you. And it's going to get to the point, and I really believe 9 times out of 10, that's why so many you'll come across black people that don't have insurance. They can't afford insurance, and it's not entirely their fault. You got these shady ass cops putting all kinds of fines and tickets and fees on them, and to the point they can't afford insurance. Oh yeah, Jet Black, here in my state, do you know they said Asian women are the worst drivers on the road? Asian women, they have the most accidents in the state of New Jersey. And because they do, but it's amazing they don't get the most tickets though. They reserve that for the black residents, but the Asians actually got the highest number in traffic accidents, and it's primarily Asian women. And you can probably even look it up because I know that has been the case now for several decades in the state of New Jersey, as them being the ones with the most traffic accidents statewide. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And quite frankly, I would think, especially during the time of the pandemic, that insurance would go down. You have a lot of people that aren't working anymore. So it really should be going down for people and not up. There's an awful lot of people in America that's not working anymore. Mhm. You know, things are changing gradually. They are, and if you notice from the time of the pandemic all the way up until now, America has a whole different spirit to it. It really does. It does not feel the same. Even when I wake up, it don't feel the same. But things are changing, and you can tell they know it is too. They know it is. They're afraid of what's coming. Many of them know something bad is coming for them. They know. Now they'll come and try to mock you and make light of it, but they know something's wrong. All right. When did they reopen the country? In the spring, right? They reopened everything in the spring. Did anything improve in America? No. Nothing got better from spring all the way up until now. Nothing. They know how to use the media and try to talk up a bunch of fake mess. They do know how to do that, but technically nothing have gotten better. In fact, I was looking at an article, and you can probably pull this up, where most of the population in Vermont got the vaccine, and they're really upset up in Vermont because they said they are getting slammed with CV. You can look this up. Now, the most of the population in Vermont is overwhelmingly white, right? They are getting their asses handed to them right now with CV. And I think they said like over 80% of them got the vaccine. And they're like, well, what the hell is going on? They're ending up in the hospital. I mean, the whole 9 yards, but you could probably pull it up. The story is definitely out there. I saw it yesterday. And they are very upset in that little tiny state where you got most of them jabbed, and the sickness is just sweeping across that whole state. Mhm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Many of them know. But, they're not gonna stop all of this stuff that they're doing until it gets to the point where they absolutely can't do it anymore. So they're gonna be continuing on with their, over policing and Karen out here over watching black people and all that. They're gonna continue down that path. Mhm. No, anything that's happening to them, Joy 31608, they're going to keep it out of the news. They're not going to talk about that because they're trying to make you believe anybody that got the jab seen, they are way better off than a person that didn't get it. But Vermont is a great example of debunking what they're saying. That absolutely debunks everything they've been saying on the news. But just if you want to see it, just pull it up. They primarily got it, most of the people there, and it is kicking their ass. They're getting their asses handed to them with the CV. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, everybody, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get a lot of videos out today, but I am going to be working on videos later on in the evening for tomorrow. Today, I'm just kind of tied up with doing things that's going to, you know, it's just occupying a lot of my time. But, everything will be back on track tomorrow. So, y'all, please enjoy the rest of your day. And, if I get another really good story, we'll come back on live stream and do it again. Shalom, family.